It's Wednesday, June 1st.
From inside the WTOP newsroom, this is the DMV Download, presented by Steamfitters Local 602. Learn how Steamfitters can benefit your business at steamfitters-602.org.
Today, a jury has reached a verdict in the dual defamation trial between actors Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. We talk with entertainment lawyer Kirk Schroder, who explains what this verdict means.
Even though truth is a defense, they somehow did not believe her defense that he actually did abuse her.
And members of Congress want to hear from NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell and Washington Commanders team owner Dan Snyder, calling them to appear in front of the House Oversight Committee. WTOP's Mitchell Miller tells us what this means for the congressional investigation into workplace harassment within Snyder's organization.
So it's clear that this panel has become very impatient with the flow of information that they are getting, or in some cases they feel they're not getting, from the Commanders as well as the NFL.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Luke Garrett.
And I'm Megan Cloherty. Two celebrities, 6 weeks of trial, and 2 days of jury deliberation brought us to these verdicts. A jury today delivering its decision to a Fairfax County judge in the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard dual libel trial.
The jury awarded both sides for defamation, but leaned heavily towards Johnny Depp's side. Joining us now is entertainment attorney Kirk Schroder, founding partner of Schroder Brooks, to explain what these decisions mean. So, Kirk, there's a lot read out by the judge just now. So how did this all shake out?
Well, it certainly shook out much better for Johnny Depp than it did Amber Heard, both financially. But it's a very difficult case to win defamation against a public person with clear and convincing evidence and proving malice. And obviously, the jury felt that Johnny Depp did that when Amber Heard published the Washington Post op-ed piece implying that he abused her. And even though truth is a defense, they somehow did not believe her defense that he actually did abuse her. Interestingly, the jury also thought that Johnny Depp defamed Amber Heard in one of the Daily Mail pieces when he made statements that she was making false claims against him. But they had obviously different dollar amounts. Amber Heard right now has a bill for $15 million, and Johnny Depp has a bill for just $2 million.
It's a big difference. But what really stood out to you in the findings here? Because we had a little delay by the jury. They didn't fill out a form correctly.
Yeah, this was really interesting. The jury had a verdict, but they did not contemplate damages. And so the judge called the lawyers up to the bench, and something's going on when that happens, something unusual. And my guess is the lawyers were able probably to peek at the jury form and to see who won or not, given their reaction when they were walking back to their seats. And essentially, the judge told the jury, go back in the jury room and figure out damages. And you would have thought that would have taken hours with 6 weeks of evidence and what they did. But they came back within less than 45 minutes and came up with $10 million, $5 million for Johnny Depp and $2 million for Amber Heard. So how they did that in such a quick time probably tells me it was a very visceral, emotional decision rather than walking through were damages there, what impact, what jobs were lost, what career implications were there.
Right.
Really quickly, I'm wondering, did they have to show why they break down the money? Like, do they have to show $2 million because of this, or can they just say it's just $2 million?
It's just $2 million. Now, obviously, the jury will get interviewed and polled, and there'll be, people telling what they thought. But it's just amazing. And I mean, gosh, half hour or less, maybe. Here it is. This is the dollar amount. And normally, you would think a jury would take a lot of time with that, given there were 6 weeks of evidence. But
right.
And that could be an appeal point. That could be a point. It could be an appeal point to the appellate court to say the jury did not take adequate time to consider damages here. But that could run both ways. That could hurt if it goes back down to the jury or to a judge, or it could go later. But I think you'll get motions to maybe reconsider the verdict, to reconsider the award. Courts hate to overturn jury verdicts. So that's a tall order. But if there was an argument that the jury did not adequately consider damages, this might be that situation.
Right. And Depp was asking for $50 million and Heard was asking for, $100 million. So what does it tell us about the jury, how they were feeling that they, kind of awarded each side a lot less money than was asked for?
Well, in Virginia, you have two types of damages. One is compensatory damages. So that means what did I actually suffer, or your career loss, things like that. And then you have punitive damages, which are capped in Virginia. It's a rather low, $375,000. So the jury was awarding compensatory damages, so which is not capped. So somewhere in that brief amount of time, they thought that Johnny Depp had $15 million coming to him for the impact on his career, and $2 million for the impact on Amber Heard.
Finally, this trial, obviously, to say it captured public interest is minimizing it significantly. As soon as the verdict came in for Johnny Depp, there were people outside the courtroom chanting, "Johnny, Johnny, Johnny, Johnny!" What do you think, from your standpoint as an entertainment lawyer, does the outcome of this trial send a message in any way?
Well, certainly the lawyers staked it. Amber Heard's defense said that a verdict for Johnny Depp was going to send a message to women everywhere that they were that were victims of abuse, and maybe the fear of coming forward for what might happen. And then obviously Johnny Depp was playing to how many men have been falsely accused. So in that court of opinion, there's certainly that. As far as legal precedent, it's rather significant in the sense that it's difficult to sue a public figure, and both of them are public figures. So I think this case will get cited certainly in defamation cases down the road if the verdict holds after any appeals. Finally, clearly Johnny Depp won the PR war. I think his folks did a much better battle because there was a PR trial and then there was the actual trial. And when you consider that the only question that the jury had to consider was whether or not Amber Heard was telling the truth, and had any of them unanimously, one of them just had to say, no, I think Amber Heard is telling the truth, this would have gone a completely different way. And apparently 7 jurors did not believe anything she said after 6 weeks of evidence.
Wow, we appreciate your analysis on this. Kirk Schroder, founding partner of Schroder Brooks Entertainment Law Firm in Northern Virginia. And years after an NFL investigation into allegations of harassment and misconduct inside the Washington Commanders team launched, owner Dan Snyder and NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell are being called to testify to a congressional committee, which is demanding transparency. If you want to save money and grow profits on your next commercial heating, cooling, HVAC, or refrigeration project, go with the men and women of Steamfitters Local 602. You can trust the experience of its workforce, members who have expertise in heating, air conditioning, refrigeration, and process piping to deliver work that's on time and on budget. For a partner you can trust who's mutually focused on your bottom line and to schedule, contact Steamfitters Local 602 at steamfitters-602.org. That's steamfitters-602.org. Steamfitters Local 602, changing lives.
Gas prices have been going crazy lately, but here at WTOP, we have something that might help.
It's called Fuel Your Summer, and it's WTOP's free gas giveaway presented by Astound Broadband. All you have to do is go download the WTOP app, register on the My WTOP page, and enter for your chance to win $100 in gas gift cards per day and the grand prize of free gas for a year up to $6,000.
During the month of June, fuel up on us. Just download the WTOP app, register, and enter for your chance to win today. Fuel Your Summer is brought to you by Astound Broadband, powered by RCN. Boost your internet with a gig and experience better. Visit astound.com. So check it out as soon as you can.
After 8 months of investigation, congressional lawmakers say they want to hear from Washington Commanders owner Dan Snyder and NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell over allegations of workplace harassment and misconduct. The House Oversight Committee requested that both men appear before the committee later this month.
And while it may seem like this letter isn't that big of a deal, WTOP's congressional correspondent Mitchell Miller is here to tell us why those who have been following this investigation closely say this is the last shoe to drop. Mitch, there's some strong language used by New York Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney in this letter, and a lot of it seems to come down to the team and the league's perceived lack of cooperation. So how serious is this request from the Oversight Committee?
Well, this is very serious. You do not usually get an owner of an NFL football team, as well as the commissioner of the NFL, Roger Goodell, called to speak and testify before a congressional panel. So it's clear that this panel has become very impatient with the flow of information that they are getting, or in some cases they feel they're not getting from the commanders as well as the NFL. And as you note, they did use some very strong language in this letter that they have sent to both of them. They used the word obstruction. They used the word stonewalled. Basically, they said that they began this investigation close to 7 to 8 months ago, and that they have not received all the information that they've been asking for. And so they feel like they had to push these two people to testify before them. And just for a bit of background information for people, why is a congressional panel investigating an NFL football team? Well, the reason goes to this issue of the workplace and harassment. What they are looking at is essentially a lot of the things that have been raised in the Me Too era, which is non-disclosure agreements, a lot of sexual harassment that was alleged by people who actually spoke to the lawmakers several months ago in connection with a roundtable that they had, saying that it was essentially a boys' club a lot of the time. A lot of the women that worked for the organization felt they were mistreated. And then in addition to that, as they probed deeper, they found some allegations of possible financial improprieties that they are still looking into.
And we heard from the Katz Marshall firm, Lisa Banks and Deborah Katz, who represent the victims in this case. And of course, they're pleased that the Oversight Committee is making this request. But part of their statement says, quote, Dan Snyder and Roger Goodell have a lot to answer for. And it seems from Maloney's letter, the committee agrees and they want some specific findings. I mean, the NFL had an independent investigation into these allegations. They hired this investigator, Beth Wilkinson, to look into all of this. But then later, months later, we learned the NFL actually signed a contract with Snyder that says he too has to agree for those findings to be released. So clearly, we haven't seen the results of the investigation. The NFL hasn't really ever commented on that. Can Congress override that agreement? How much transparency are they expecting here?
Well, that's really interesting because the NFL kind of put out this general statement in connection with the fact that the investigation had taken place, that everything was looked into, and here's what they found, and that they're following up on it. Now, critics of the NFL, as well as the commanders, say this was just basically an effort to get that out there and then sweep it under the rug and hope everybody would forget about it. But clearly, this committee has not forgotten about it, and they are pushing really, really hard to try to get this information. But I'll leave it for the lawyers to sort out. Really, the only way from a congressional standpoint that they could override some type of agreement like this, or at least get the information they want, is they would have to issue subpoenas. And we have seen that subpoenas in some cases may or may not have as much power as many have thought they should have in connection with Congress. We've seen that with the January 6th investigation here in connection with the attack on the U.S. Capitol.
Right.
That some people are flouting those subpoenas. So we'll have to see if the committee is going to be determined enough to do something that along those lines. Personally, I don't think that they will go that route at this point at any rate.
And Mitch, just like the January 6th, committee, things can get political. And there's a spokesperson, a Republican spokesperson that talked to the Washington Post who said that this is a Democratic sham investigation in reference to this, commander's House committee request. What role will politics possibly play in this, hearing?
Well, that's a really good point because the chair of this committee, Carolyn Maloney, is known for being somebody who's very aggressive at going after a lot of different issues. Now, her critics on the Republican side say she kind of takes a grab bag approach and goes at a lot of different things and tries to see what she can get to bring attention to the committee, of course, to bring attention to her. A lot of people say, why are you pursuing this when there are so many other issues taking place in the U.S., whether it's inflation, rising gas prices? You can go right down the list. So you definitely are going to have a political element, surprise, surprise, here in Congress related to that. But the Republicans on this panel are not really anywhere near where Carolyn Maloney and other Democrats are in this committee.
And Mitch, what action can the Oversight Committee take against Snyder and Goodell, if anything? I just kind of wonder, is this really just a show, or is there some kind of some kind of action they could take against them to make them either bring forward some of these documents or to make things right if it shows they are damning?
Well, they already have had some progress, and we did get a statement from the NFL today in which They said that they will respond to this in a, quote, timely manner. The NFL also noting that it has already turned over, they say, 460,000 documents in connection with this investigation and related issues. But to your question, it really does go back to the subpoena power of Congress. That is really the only way that they are going to get actual documents to require NFL lawyers, and believe me, the NFL has a lot of them, to come in and say, okay, we have to turn this over. They tell Roger Goodell, we have no choice, but we need to turn over these various documents if something is unearthed in connection with a specific incident or allegation. So I think that's really the only route that Congress has in connection with this.
And WTOP has reached out to the commanders as well as Snyder for comment, and we didn't hear back today.
WTOP's Mitchell Miller, thank you so much for catching us up on this issue, this new request, and what may come from it.
You bet.
And before we go, Megan, I got to tell you about this story, this harrowing story about my grocery shopping trip this past weekend.
You alluded to it, and I don't want to give it away, but I'm also on the edge of my seat because I'm kind of nervous about what you're going to say.
There was a 6-foot snake hanging out 6 feet behind me as I was loading, groceries into my car.
Nope.
And I was so shocked. I was so shocked. I guess it's actually pretty common. There are snakes in D.C.
Wait, stop. You were loading your groceries. You turn around and you see a 6-foot snake.
Yeah. Like a gray, black 6-foot snake. Very beautiful, shiny. And it was right in the road. I was on Wisconsin Avenue, kind of in Glover Park.
Yeah.
And it was just right there. It looked so out of place. And everyone was stopping and screeching and screaming.
It was crossing the street.
Yeah, it was crossing the street.
What?
And then cars were driving, and one drove near it, and it kind of coiled up in a defensive position. Anyway, I ended up driving away. But over the next few days, I've seen video after video of snakes kind of out in D.C. There was one on Connecticut Avenue near McCobb Street. There's one near U Street.
Wait, what if it's the same snake and he's just doing a tour of D.C.?
Maybe. It's possible. It's possible. But I did some looking into it. And, snakes are out and about right now because it's getting warmer. And snakes are cold-blooded creatures, meaning when it gets warm, they get warmer and they can move more. Yeah. And so they're out and about. And experts are just, telling people to be aware. Most of them are not venomous, which is a really good thing. Even though this one I saw was 6 feet, I was still pretty scared. But it wasn't venomous. It was a rat snake, actually, an eastern rat snake. And it actually is pretty good to decrease the rat population. But you have to watch out for the eastern copperhead. That's the one venomous snake in our area.
I'm going to go Google that immediately. Yeah. It does make sense at this time of year you're seeing more of them. But it does not make sense that for some reason this year more than ever, we're seeing all these videos and pictures and people reporting them. Yeah,
I don't know. There was a marked increase in rat populations, throughout the area because the COVID, just
more Grubhub leads to more rats.
Exactly. Yeah, there was just an increased rat problem, and so with rats kind of being more out there, maybe the snake population grew too. I don't know, but
wow,
look out.
Ugh.
Look out, people. The snakes are out there.
It's like a PSA, but really just one you don't want to hear. That'll do it for us today on the DMV Download. We are sponsored by Steam Fitters Local 602. Our managing editor is Craig Schwab, and our music is by Real World.
Give us a review and rate our show if you get the chance, and follow us on social media where we post content every day from behind the scenes.
You can find out more about this podcast and become one of our VIP listeners at dmvdownload.com.
The DMV Download is a product of WTOP News. Listen on 103.5 FM in the D.C. area, 107.7 FM in Virginia, 103.9 in Frederick, Maryland, online at WTOP.com, and on the WTOP News app. Have a great night, everyone.